Okay, so I want to make this video about psychedelics. So the last video I made was about psychedelics. This video is also about psychedelics, but in a different perspective, because I want to talk about this thing I've kind of noticed where I call it the point of no return. Where, like, with psychedelics, there seems to be this, I don't know how to explain it, like a point of no return. Like, you could do psychedelics many times and it's fine. It was mainly because I was doing this shamanically. I was going into it like intentionally shamanically, trying to look at it spiritually, trying to learn and grow and figure out myself and just work on myself and all these different things, right? So as I was working on all these different things with the psychedelics, there was some point on the journey where it's like there was no going back. Like, I used to be some wannabe thug, and like the change was good because I went from some wannabe thug that didn't give a fuck, like in like a bad way, like. But then I went from that to who I am now, which who I am now feels more like me. But also, it's like before I went through puberty, okay, I was a slightly different person. Like when I was a kid, I was a slightly different person. Like my personality had certain traits to it. My mother explained to me that like now my personality matches that better more than the person I became when I was a teenager. Now, the person I became when I was a teenager, from not having a father figure in the house, from learning, I guess, men things from like gangsters and like thugs and people that I hung out with and like whatever. So, it kind of just became this thing. And yeah, after using psychedelics and DMT and, Hawaiian baby woodrow seeds and, all these different things, LSD and all these different tools and all these different molecules and all these different plants and stuff and all the different plants and herbs have helped as well. Like the 6-month plant diet I went on with Motherwort, and like that was so healing. Like it was so healing on a spiritual level that I can't explain, because people look at Motherwort like it's just some herb that doesn't really do much besides calm you down a little. But like intention matters with these things. And when I was on this journey, I noticed that with the psychedelics only, like the mushroom, probably LSD, DMT, ayahuasca, there's a point of no return, which once you hit that, it's like you'll be just doing psychedelics, maybe you do it 3 times a year, 4 times a year, and you're like, oh, this is just what I do and it's normal, whatever. But maybe 7 years down the road, like even if you did it 4 times a year, 6 years down the road maybe, you might have a trip where it's like, if you have an experience that pushes you past the point of no return, like you'll be fine. Physically, you're fine. It's just the problem of knowing a knowledge or having something that you'll have forever that you'll never forget. And like, sometimes the things that we know, the knowledge that we gain from psychedelics is unexplainable in English, but just because you can't explain it doesn't mean you forget about it. Like, there's just, psychedelics can throw you across the universe, can put you in an experience where, the shamans look at it like the land of the dead and like, the spirit world. And these were taken seriously in the past because they had an understanding of what it was, where we take it seriously in a different way in the West, where in the West people sit here and talk about, drug safety, test your substances, have a trip sitter, like all these different things, and that's great, that's good advice as well. But I think also understanding what you're truly getting yourself into on a spiritual level, on like a these type of things have been used for thousands of years for this and this and this. Like, people lack even a conscious awareness of the ancientness of the psychedelic experience, of the things you can gain from it, on why people used it in the past. And it's only modern day things where it's like, okay, the mushrooms, little like, people take mushrooms, but it's not like people are taking, 4 to 5 grams of mushrooms with a blindfold on. Most people don't trip that way. Or most people don't trip with the intention to have a vision or travel into the world. That's why I said put a blindfold on. Or like, I don't know. It's our perspective in the West is from our alcohol problem in the West. Like, and I mean like alcohol problem. I just mean that alcohol is the drug that people compare. Like, that is the main drug that people have a comparison with everything. Like, most people, when they think drug, their main experience with a drug is alcohol. So if that's your experience, like, that's why people be sitting here, talking about, like, almost like an ego thing where it's like, I'll take a 10 strip, I'll take more L than you, I could take more this than you, and it's like, okay, that's not the point. Because the point is, there's an understanding to learning how to maneuver with psychedelics. Like Terence McKenna said, psychedelics are an art form. Like, over time, you get better with the art form. It's no different than any other art form. Like, over time, you develop certain techniques and develop certain things that can help you be a better artist in that art form. And maybe because I'm a musician and I'm an artist, and it's just how I think anyways, that the psychedelic experience was easy for me to look at like an art form, like just something that I can learn how to get better with. If I had a DMT trip where the flash was so fast I couldn't see it, I could learn how to get better to see it. Like, if I was scared, or if I didn't know how to do this, or if when the anxiety hit I didn't know how to handle it, or if all these things, I'm like, well, I can learn it. I can figure it out. I can trial and error. As I was trialing and error the psychedelic experience by doing DMT and doing the psychedelics and doing the plants and herbs, like I said, I took like over 30 plants and herbs, like, and most of them most people have not even heard of, but like, these were plants that I was just interested in, things that I was drawn towards. Like, I felt almost a calling to, like, everything I've researched, like all the plants I did before I did the plant, I did research on the molecules in the plant, I did research on the history of the plant, I did research on the safety of the plant and the dosage of, like, all these different things before I went to do the plant, and then went on a plant diet with it. And this is what I mean by, you can know the plant by saying, okay, this is the safety of it, this is this, the LD50 is this, so I'm safe to take an extremely high dose without worrying about whether I'm going to die, or the thing is this, and because nobody really uses this plant, there's not enough research on it, so that's why sometimes I was more going towards the LD50 of things, which is just, if you don't know, I don't want to explain it, but like, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, there's that knowledge which keeps you physically safe. But then there's this knowledge that I'm trying to explain, that will keep you mentally safe. Like, understanding these things. Also understanding the mechanism of these things. Like, how do they work? And what are they doing to you? And so forth and so on. But then, that's when I started figuring out, okay, psychedelics work on the 5-HT2A receptors, which is just serotonin receptor or whatever, and that's the main, like, psychedelic receptor. But things that work on that receptor are going to cause a psychedelic experience. Each psychedelic experience is a little different because it's that receptor mixed with a bunch of other things that are going off too. And those bunch of other things are different for each different psychedelic. But the one thing in common with the typical psychedelics is the 5-HT2A receptor. Now, this thing seems to, like DMT or mushrooms or these things, it seems that when you fired it off so many times, there's like this almost like a point of no return where like you're just because like the way of thinking, you know how like back when I was using psychedelics and 6-7 years ago, okay, I was using psychedelics but I was still thinking like a thug. So like my consciousness, I would use the psychedelic, and while I was on the psychedelic, the way I think today was the way I thought when I was on the psychedelic. But the way I thought when I came down from the psychedelic was I went back to being the wannabe thug in my head. That's what took me 6-7 years of integration, learning how to work on my own mind, doing the practices, doing the meditations, doing these things, and like actually doing the work even when I'm not on the psychedelic, which is trying to integrate what the psychedelic experience was trying to teach me, what I learned from it, what I got out of it, like all these different things, and sometimes I get some really deep spiritual ancient knowledge shit out of it, right? Like, you can get downloaded with information where you just feel like you got downloaded with something and it's like, you can't really explain it, but those sometimes are really overloading on DMT, and those experiences, if someone was not prepared, can leave someone a little, not in a psychosis, because I don't like to use the word psychosis, but like, psychedelics can cause you to have such a stressful experience that it can cause a psychosis, because a really extremely stressful experience, it doesn't have to be a drug experience, it could be just a really stressful life experience. A completely sober person then has a completely mental breakdown because there's some life shit that happens, and it's that thing that, to protect the mind, because we're so worried about protecting the physical, but to protect the mind is to go in with psychedelics with an understanding of the whole picture. Not just, yeah, this is physically safe, okay. After that experience, you can go back to your normal life, but if you do them enough times, you can't. Like, you can't go back to normal life without looking at normal life from a different perspective. Like, once you've seen life from that different perspective many, many times, it becomes a perspective that you can bring back with you. But it's no longer a can. It's that point of no return thing. Sounds bad, but it's a beautiful thing. But it's a rough thing for humans to let go of who they think they are, or who we think, like, I wanted to not be the wannabe thug. I wanted to think like I think. I wanted to beat my mental health issues. I wanted to stop getting angry. I wanted to, because I was addicted to my anger. I was addicted to, these things, the depression, the self-harming, all this shit that I also started picking up, not from, it's not like I started self-harming or started getting depression or all these things because of the psychedelics. It's that once you hit that point of no return, it means that you now see you, and you might not like what you see. Like, I'm now seeing, I'm this wannabe thug. I treat people like shit sometimes. Like, I treated my mom like shit. I'm like, whatever. But then it started being like, okay, it can't be whatever. And that wasn't a pleasant time. Like, it wasn't a pleasant time when you truly figure out that you're the problem in your own life and you can change. Like it's a decision. You have to choose, and then you have to, like, it was the decision for me to get in shape last year. I had to choose to get in shape because no one's around. Like, I live alone. So no one's here to, like, motivate me or whatever. It's me. And that's the thing that psychedelics have shown me. And the thing that so many people are missing with everything. Like, because they think if they go to the therapist, if they go to therapy, they'll be healed. When they're not understanding that the therapy is a work, it's a process. They think if they start meditating, they'll be able to stop overthinking and heal their anxiety. When they're looking at it from like, if I do this, I'll be healed. If I do that, I'll be healed. If I just take that plant, I'll be healed. If I just drink ayahuasca, I'll be healed. If I just talk to that person, I'll be healed. When everything is just a tool for you to heal yourself. And it's always on us. And the psychedelic journey is not an easy way. It's not a quick way. It's not a whatever way. It's probably the hardest way. Because on the end of it is not just, I healed my anxiety, I beat my depression. Because yes, I can say these things. I no longer self-harm. This is reality. But like, you know, and it helped me get back into making music. And now I make music that like I want to make. And I don't know how to explain it, but like, you know, it made me, I don't want to say it made me, but like I had an idea of like, well, maybe I should start selling beats. And it's almost like when you're tripping, you're like, well, duh. Well, you know, do you have that tripping voice in your head that's like, well, duh, silly. And you're like, oh yeah. You know, and it's kind of fun. Then, I don't know, I was tripping and had a laugh about that. But like those little things, those little moments, those little whatever are moments that you can look at yourself, but you might not like what you see. And with psychedelics, the point of no return is when you no longer can accept what a human being, like when a human being tells you, like, it's like they're just a drug, you know something because, like, that thing, once you have something that you can't explain, like once you have one of those psychedelic experiences that you can't explain at all, and like there's like the parts are unenglishable, feelings of it are unfeelable or unimaginable, or I don't know how to explain it, but like you come back with knowing that you went through that, and it's like, well, that was an experience. So like you could say that wasn't real, but that was an experience, like whatever. And then you stop, like the point of no return is like you really stop arguing with people because it's no longer a when somebody is like, I've had people try to, you know, get me to say, well, you know, try to get me to believe what you, I'm like, whoa, bro, I don't ever want you to fucking try to get you to believe what I believe. I'm just telling you what the fuck I've experienced, what I think, and what I've, you know, gone through or whatever, and I really think with psychedelics, intention matters the most. Like, why are you tripping? Why are you using psychedelics? What is the reason? If it's to heal your anxiety or to heal you, I really just want people to understand that it might just, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And that's why a Western-minded person without the knowledge and understanding of shamanism or herbalism or how to heal themselves, or if they haven't been doing shadow work and doing work on themselves and all these different things, then they're gonna be the person that believes in the bad trip. But there is no such thing as a bad trip. They don't exist. The bad trip is you not liking what's happening. That's all. Just like a human life is life. Whether it's good or bad is based off of the person's perspective. Everything is based off of our perspective. So, and you get your perspective, like perspective and intention are very, you know, right next to each other type shit. Some yin and yang shit, because I don't know, when you have a certain perspective, you might have a certain intention. You know, if you have a certain perspective of, oh, this isn't real, or, you know, these are just some colors, or it's just a drug, or whatever, like, there's an intention behind that. There's something behind that that's causing that perspective. When you have a perspective, like for me, I just have a perspective that I don't think about real or not real, because ever since these really deep experiences, you're like, the human experience is a molecule experience. And every experience is a molecule experience. Nothing is real. What is real? Yada yada yada. Like, it gets into the question of what is real and all that shit, and I get it, and you could run around in circles about that for a lifetime. So instead of running around in circles about it, I don't question. It's an experience. Like, this is an experience that I'm going through. When I wake up in the morning, I don't question it, I just live it. And one day I'm not going to be living this experience, but I don't question that either, really. Like, I just live. You know, it's also about being in the moment and all these different lessons and things that I've learned from these things. But the point of no return is when it's like, there is no going back. I can't go back to the wannabe thug. I can't go back to normal life. I can't go back to normal thinking. When people say, like, people say it all the time, like, you know, everyone thinks like that. I'm like, no, I don't think like that. Or like, I don't, whatever. Or I truly don't care what people think about me, because I've gone through experiences that have made it so I've not been human. Like, I've gone through experiences without my body, which makes me think, well, we don't know anything. They don't know anything about themselves. So why the fuck would I care whether they know anything about me or what they think about me? And then it's like, that old saying sticks in my head where it's like, comparison is the thief of joy or whatever. And I don't compare myself to anybody, because I get inspired by people. Like, I don't compare myself to Terrence McKenna. I was inspired by Terrence McKenna. I don't look at people as competition unless it's some healthy competition, but like, the real competition is that wannabe thug that I used to be. The real competition was, I had an idea that my intention starting the psychedelic journey was I wanted to become a modern day shaman. And I used my ability to, I truly don't care what people think about me, to wean out all those voices of the people, even the psychedelic people saying, you know, modern day shaman, you can't be a shaman, they're in the jungle, or all these different things, which then that's their perspective, which has an intention behind it as well. But like, there's just this thing that I've learned over the years, that it's like, I'm glad that I made it past the point of no return, but I see a lot of people who, when they hit that point of no return, because eventually you'll hit that point, and that's when you'll stop using psychedelics. Like, that's when most people stop using psychedelics, and then they say, well, I used to take psychedelics, you know, all the time, but, you know, now I don't take psychedelics that often, or I don't take, or I take them once a year or twice a year, or whatever. Because when you hit that point of no return, if you are not ready to change, it's going to be something you don't want to do, you don't want to go through, you're going to look at it as a bad trip, a bad experience, or whatever, and then you're going to say, you know, and then you have your perspective, and that's fine. If you don't want to go through it, that's okay. Like, people don't have to do psychedelics, you know, it's just there. But I think we need to start paying attention to more than just, yeah, it's physically safe. Yes, it's physically safe, but this is not your typical drugs that the Western society is used to. It's not what people are used to, and they're not truly prepared. Like, most people have no idea what they're truly getting themselves into.